All right, we've made it. This is the final video of this appointment closing sales training. Now, this video, we're going to talk all about how to overcome objections. An objection is simply any excuse that your potential customer makes to avoid becoming your customer. Now, it is worth noting that in this video, I'm not going to go over every possible objection you can possibly see during an appointment. However, most objections are going to fall under a couple of key categories. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to overcome the main objections, and most other objections will fall under one of these categories. It's also worth noting that most times in an appointment, the objections are going to come in one of two spots. They're going to come right after pitching the price to your potential customer and closing the deal, trying to actually make them your customer. This also happens pretty frequently when painting the ideal outcome for your customer as well. So both of these times is the most likely times when you're going to see objections. However, you could see an objection at any point during your appointment. And the best time to overcome an objection is right after the objection is made. So don't make the mistake of waiting to the end of the appointment to overcome an objection. When your customer makes an objection to you, overcome it right then and right there, using the tactics we're about to talk about. The first and most common objection you will hear from a potential customer is, "Let me think about it." These are people who famously are unwilling to say yes, but also unwilling to say no. Now, I do want to point out, the closer that you follow this process that I've outlined for you in these 4 videos, the less "I need to think about it" you will get at the end of your appointment. So the first thing that you should take away when somebody says, "I need to think about it," is there is a part of this sales process that I either need to improve on or that I'm skipping intentionally and I need to make sure to incorporate in my appointment process. The more you follow this rubric, the less think about it you will get. But of course, we are always going to get the "I need to think about it" people. That is unavoidable. So that begs the question, what do we do about these people? Now, I've got some bad news for you. If you get somebody who says, "I want to think about it," most likely you're not going to close this deal. Now, this is something that you probably don't want to hear because after all, they haven't said no, but statistics show that if somebody gets to the end of an appointment and they say that they need to think about it, it means they're not going to become a customer, or at the very least, they're not going to become a customer in the near future. So it's good for the salesman to set the correct expectation for themselves when they get to that point in an appointment. However, here are some tactics that can help these people make better decisions, at least to tell you yes or to tell you no. Here's an example of something I would typically say to somebody who says they need to think about it. "You need to think about it?" I totally understand. I have lots of customers, and for the people who tell me that they need to think about it, typically what they need to think about kind of falls into one of two categories. Either they're nervous about the price or they're unsure about the timeline. Which one of these is a bigger concern for you? So by posing a question this way, I'm not asking them to say yes to me right now, but I am asking them to make a decision. Do I have a problem with the price or do I have a problem with the timeline? So once they've made a choice, let's just say they have a problem with the timeline, we just need to do iterations of discovery to figure out how to solve this problem. So let's say your customer said they have a problem with the timeline. I might say something to the effect of, "What would the timeline need to look like to make this a no-brainer for you?" And then you let them talk. Remember one of our first rules, we let them talk the most. So they're going to reply to me what it would need to look like to be a no-brainer for them. And so then we're going to adjust our quote and adjust our offering in real time to help fit their specific needs. Now, once you have solved that particular problem for that customer, sometimes they're good to go. But sometimes you uncover additional problems. Like maybe they had a problem with the timeline and a problem with the price. Well, you just continue to iterate. Once you've solved the problems for the timeline, you can then do the same process to solving the problems on the price. Once you've solved all of their problems, you get to what I call the floor. Once we get to the floor, that means that everything moving forward, in their own words, is a no-brainer for them. Then you can ask for the business again. Now, most times, once you've found the floor, they're going to agree with you and move forward in using your service or product. But in some cases, they still dig their heels in and say, "I am going to think about it." And if this is the case with your prospect, typically I will pivot and try another method. Now, this coming method concedes to what their want is, which is to think about it, but also puts a time frame around thinking about it. I might say something to the effect of, "I totally understand. you want to think about it before moving forward. After all, this is a really important decision. How long do you think it will take for you to think about it long enough to where you feel like all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted? Now they're going to respond to you 3 days or a week or a month or whatever time frame they give you. In this example, let's say that they said a week. If they say a week, I would respond with something like, okay, that's really reasonable. Now today is Thursday. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a call at this exact time next Thursday, right? Same time as we're having this appointment right now. Now that gives you a full week to be able to think about it. And if after a week you'd like to move forward with me, you can let me know when I give you a call next week. But if you don't want to move forward with me, that's totally fine. Just let me know when I call you next week. Is that fair? Now, in all of the appointments I've ever run, I've never had somebody come back to me and say that that was not fair. Now, here's what's very important. I treat these want to think about it people the same way that I treat people who have ghosted me on an appointment or did not confirm their appointment. I'm going to tell them, I'm going to call them in 1 week just like they agreed to. If they don't answer their phone, or if they haven't made a decision by then that's it. I cut them off and I move forward. They're not going to be a customer for me. The second most common objection you will hear in an appointment is, this is too expensive for me. Now, if you follow my sales process, you should never hear this objection. But I know, and you know, that people act strange sometimes, and even though they've given us their price range, sometimes they will still say the price is too high, even when we give them a quote in their price range. So we just need to get to the floor of that price objection. What I would typically say would sound something like this. Hey, I know I asked you about your price expectations previously in this appointment, and you said 5,000 to 7,000. I just gave you a quote for 6,000, but I can tell it's not something that you want. Is there a better price range that would make this a total no-brainer for you? This gives your customer permission to be able to reevaluate where their price range actually is. Now, typically at this point, we will see one of two things. Either they will tell you what their real price range is, and that gives you the opportunity to adjust the quote to match their current real price range, and they can move forward. Or you will uncover that it's actually not about the price at all, it's about something else, maybe like the timeline. No matter what concern pops up, we can always do problem-solving iterations until we get to the floor. Once we get to the floor, that's all we can do, and we can ask for their business again. Another objection that we see all the time is, I would love to move forward, but I have to talk to my wife first, or I have to talk to my significant other first. If this happens during your appointment, I'd recommend that you look into the mirror, you point at yourself, and you say, I have messed up. These appointments are called one-legged appointments. These are appointments where not both of the decision makers are even present. If you do a one-legged appointment, it's a total waste of your time. There is no reason to do an appointment where both decision makers are not present. You need to identify who the decision makers are before you even come to the appointment, or at the very least, at the very beginning of the appointment. You're wasting your time if you run a full appointment without both decision makers there. I hope I've made my point really clear on that. Another objection you'll hear pretty frequently is, we want to do this, we just can't do this right now. My natural response to this question is, that's great. I'm glad that you like what I'm offering. I know you don't want to do this right now. What is going to be different later that can't be accomplished right now? And they're going to give you some answer like, well, I need to save up money for the next month and then I can do it the following month. Or, hey, I don't get paid until next Thursday and so I can do it after next Thursday. You're just doing the same type of problem-solving iterations until you get to the floor. So you can solve this problem by saying something to the effect of, hey, no worries, we can sign this contract right now, but I don't need to collect payment from you until next Thursday after you've gotten paid. Does that seem reasonable to you? And then they say yes, and then you move forward, getting the sale, and you get paid in a couple weeks. Another objection that can make us a little bit furious is when we go through an entire appointment and they really like us, but they end by saying, I'm going to get 2 other quotes. It's the classic, I always need to get 3 quotes type of people. I might say something like, hey, I totally understand the idea around shopping around. Now, the people who want to shop around after I take them through an appointment typically have an issue with one of 2 things. It's either my price or it's my timeline. Which one of these 2 is more of a concern for you? And using almost the exact same method that I use for the I want to think about it people, I'm going to iterate to problem solve until we get to the floor of that customer's concerns. Once we get to the floor, we ask for the business again. Now, as you can imagine, there certainly are some people that no matter what we say are always going to get a couple of different bids. And sometimes this is unavoidable. Like, hey, I'm an employee. My boss told me I had to get 3 bids. I can't overrule my boss. So these circumstances are going to come. And I definitely do not recommend that you as a company decide to compete with competitors by racing to the lowest price. That's a way where you're definitely going to lose. Here's a sneaky little trick that I like to use when I find myself in this circumstance. I will build myself 2 relationships with my competitors, and I will make an agreement with them. That agreement will be something to the effect of, hey, if I give you business, if I give you work, will you give me a 10% referral fee? Now, most business owners will say, yes, if you give me work, I'll happily give you 10% referral fee. So I will typically have 2 or 3 of my competitors on deck in that way. So if I'm in an appointment just like this, and my potential client says, I want to get multiple bids, I might say, hey, getting multiple bids, that's a great idea. I know all the different window companies in town, and I have 2 recommendations of people who do a really good job just like I do. Would you mind if I had them give you a call to get you a bid? Typically, they're really excited, like, yes, you just saved me a lot of work. Thank you for doing that. And then I shag this lead off to my competitors, and they give this potential customer a bid. Now, maybe I win the business. I got a 1 out of 3 chance. Or maybe they win the business, in which case I still get a referral fee from them. So I make money either way. If you're not utilizing this strategy in your business, you should start doing it. And the final type of objection that I see are the hagglers. Now, these people are different than the people who say it's too expensive. The people who say it's too expensive, they're concerned about their budget. Hagglers are a little bit different. Hagglers are people who want you to do it for less money for them just because they're always going to haggle price no matter what. One good thing about hagglers is if somebody begins this haggling process with you, that's actually really good news for us. It means that they're taking our offer very seriously, and now they're on the next phase of their buying decision, trying to find the best price. I actually really like hagglers, but I have one rule that I never bend on. I never give discounts for free. So what do I mean by that? In the example that I gave in the previous videos, I was working for a window company, and the bid that I gave to my potential customer was that I was going to replace 2 windows and then repair the rest of the windows in the house. Now, if I'm working with a haggler and they don't like my bid of $6,000 and they want a cheaper price, I will happily accommodate them. I will say, that sounds fine. First of all, what price would make you more comfortable? And typically they'll spit out a price, but sometimes they won't. Sometimes they'll just see how low you'll go. I might say, okay, sounds good. Instead of me replacing the 2 windows that we talked about, I can actually repair those as well as repairing the rest of the windows in the house. That will take your price from $6,000 to $5,000. So what I've done is I've reduced the price, but I've also taken away value to justify reducing that price. Never, ever, ever back yourself into a corner where I take $1,000 off the price just because. Like, there's no reason to do that. If your customer is going to pay a lower price, it's going to be because you do less for them. Period. And never, ever compromise on that rule. The funny thing is that when haggling with a person and we start taking away goods and services to justify their price, typically they'll go back up to the price I originally quoted them and move forward at that price. But it's kind of a little dance you have to play with these hagglers. But don't give in. Never give away discounts for free. And that's it. Those are the most common types of rebuttals that you are going to get on these appointments. So, to recap the entire training, make sure you follow the process. Make sure you are ready for the appointment. And if you forget how to be ready, go back and watch Module 1 again. Also, make sure you do your introduction well. An introduction sets the stage for the entire appointment. And if you forget how to do that well, just go back to Module 2 and relearn that. Also, you need to make sure that you're talking about the financial side and closing the customer appropriately. If you forget how to do that, just go to Module 3 and relearn it. And finally, be prepared to handle any sort of objection. Objections are just opportunities for you to problem solve to make this a no-brainer for your customer. If you forget how to do objections, just go over Module 4 one more time. And that's it. If you follow this process when running your appointments, you are guaranteed to close more business and your bank account will appreciate it. So get closing.